dawn in northern Thailand, a woman lights 3 incense sticks, not inside a temple, but in her garden, for the spirits who live in the land itself. In Tibet, hundreds of pilgrims prostrating in waves before a golden Tara statue, tears on their faces. Some have traveled for months. In Sri Lanka, massive crowds circling the Temple of the Tooth. The drum beats. Incense so thick it coats your throat. Inside, a fragment of bone from someone who died 2,500 years ago. In Japan, a family gathered at their home altar, speaking to photographs. Their dead grandmother, their grandfather, asking for guidance. In China, an elderly man with prayer beads, lips moving rapidly. Namo Amitābha Buddha, 10,000 repetitions, every single day. He believes this will save him at death. 5 different countries, 5 different practices, 1 confusion. But what stops most people? Buddhism explicitly teaches there is no creator God. No divine judge, no cosmic authority granting favors, no eternal soul getting saved. So who are all these people praying to? The answer reveals something most people never see about Buddhism, something that exists in the gap between what texts say and what humans actually do. Today, we map the entire invisible pantheon. This video exists because of you, specifically dozens of comments on recent videos, after why Buddhists don't believe in God, after the video on Tara, after the breakdown of the 3 schools. The same confusion kept appearing. If there's no God, why do Buddhists bow to statue? Wait, I thought Buddhism was atheist, but my Thai friend prays all the time. Are Bodhisattvas gods or not? I'm completely lost. You're not confused, you're noticing something real. There is a gap, a massive gap between what Buddhism says philosophically and what Buddhists actually do. First, a definition reset, because language matters. When most people say prayer, they mean talking to God, making a request, asking for help from a supreme being who can intervene. Buddhism uses prayer, but means something different. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. Honoring, chanting, making offerings, remembering the dead, training your own mind through devotion. That spectrum, all of it gets called prayer. Now, before we dive into who receives these prayers, what Buddhism actually rejects. No creator who made the universe in classical Buddhist doctrine. The cosmos has no beginning, no divine architect. No judge who forgives sins. Karma is cause and effect. Natural law, not cosmic judgment from above. No eternal soul that gets saved. What we call self is a temporary process, not a permanent essence. Karma isn't a divine reward system, it's physics of the mind. Actions create consequences. No scorekeeper required. So with all that rejected, why do Buddhist temples overflow with devotion? Why incense? Why prostrations? Why chanting? Why offerings to statues and spirits and dead masters? There was a moment when this clicked for me. Years ago, I studied Buddhism through books, English translations, academic texts. Everything was clear. No creator deity. Self-liberation through wisdom and meditation. Philosophy, ethics, meditation techniques. Simple. Then I traveled to Southeast Asia, walked into my first temple. Incense smoke so thick it stung my eyes, people on their knees, offerings of fruit, flowers, money stacked everywhere. Chanting I couldn't understand. My textbook Buddhism and real-world Buddhism were not the same thing. And that's the gap most Western books never explain. If you learned Buddhism through books in English, you met Buddhism as philosophy, If you learned Buddhism through temples, you met Buddhism as relationship. Both are real, both are Buddhism. Today, we map both. To understand this, we need three lenses. Layer 1, Philosophical Buddhism. The doctrine, no God, emptiness, self-liberation through insight. Layer 2, Devotional Buddhism. The practice, prayers, offerings, merit-making, chanting. Layer 3, Folk Buddhism. The lived reality, spirits, magic, protective amulets, syncretism with whatever religion was there first. Quick note before we start. Buddhism isn't one thing. A city temple in Bangkok and a village shrine 50 miles away can feel like completely different religions, different deities, different practices, different beliefs. What I'm describing is the pattern across traditions, the common threads. Your experience or your Buddhist friend's experience might be different. And that's completely normal in Buddhism. The secret most people miss: all three layers operate simultaneously in every Buddhist culture and every tradition. Buddhism didn't remove devotion, it redistributed it. Let's see where it went. Ancient palm leaf manuscripts, golden Buddha statues. Something stops most people cold when they first learn this. Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha, was a human teacher who discovered a method. He never claimed divinity, never promised to save anyone. But in Mahāyāna Buddhism, the branch that dominates East Asia and Tibet, he's not the only Buddha. There are multiple Buddhas, many Buddhas, each with a specialty. Deep blue medicine Buddha for healing, golden red Amitābha for salvation, white Vajrayāna representing cosmic truth itself. If the Buddha said no gods can save you, why pray to any Buddha at all? Let me answer that directly, because dodging this question feels like a bait and switch. According to the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the discourse recording his final days, one common translation renders the Buddha's last words as, "All conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive with diligence. Work it out yourself." So why bow to him? Why make offerings? Why chant his name? Four reasons. First, gratitude. He's the teacher, the one who figured out the path and taught it. You honor the teacher, not worship them. Second, aspiration. What you bow to shapes what you become. You're training your mind to orient toward enlightenment. The statue isn't Buddha. The statue is a reminder of what's possible. Third, merit making. In many Buddhist cultures, making offerings generates positive karma, not because Buddha receives them, but because generosity shapes the mind toward openness. Fourth, memory. Ritual shapes attention. You remember the teachings every time you bow. There's a formal structure to this. It's called taking refuge. Refuge in the Buddha. Refuge in the Dhamma, the teachings. Refuge in the Sangha, the community of practitioners. This isn't worship, it's orientation. I point my life toward this. It's the emotional and ethical attachment Buddhism permits, even encourages, as training. No creator is required. Liberation still depends on your training. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. Now the specialization. Each Buddha embodies one aspect, one quality, one domain. Medicine Buddha by Sajaguru. Deep blue skin, holding a bowl filled with healing nectar. His pure land, traditionally described as existing in the eastern direction, is a realm of perfect healing. What do people pray to him for? Physical healing, recovery from mental illness, protection from epidemics. Hospital bedside tables in Buddhist countries, you'll often find a Medicine Buddha card. Terminal diagnosis, chronic pain that won't respond to treatment. A child's illness no one can explain. When doctors say there's nothing more they can do, the mind needs somewhere to direct hope. Medicine Buddha provides that direction. Blue light visualization so vivid you can feel it radiating through your body. Functionally, what does this do? Creates psychological space for healing. Gives people agency when they feel powerless. Amitābha Buddha, the most prayed to Buddha in East Asian Buddhism, arguably the most widespread devotional form across China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. His specialty? Granting rebirth in the Pure Land, Sukhavati, a paradise realm where enlightenment is easy. No suffering, no obstacles, just perfect conditions for awakening. The practice, called Nembutsu in Japanese, Nianfo in Chinese, is simple. Chant his name. Namo Amitābha Buddha. Some dedicated practitioners traditionally aim for numbers like 10,000 repetitions a day for their entire lives. The promise. According to traditional accounts of the 48 vows in the larger Sukhavati Vyuha Sutra, goes like this. If you call Amitābha's name sincerely, especially at the moment of death, he will appear. He'll arrive on a lotus throne, surrounded by Bodhisattvas, and escort you personally to the Pure Land. You don't have to be a meditation master. You don't have to understand emptiness. You don't have to be a monk. Faith and devotion are enough. In lived devotion, this often functions in a similar role to a savior figure, even if the philosophy explains it differently. Pure Land Buddhism teaches that Amitābha's compassion is so vast, his vows so powerful. He's committed to saving everyone who calls his name. The philosophical defense: the Pure Land is a mental state, not a place. The practical reality: millions believe it's an actual realm, a place you'll be reborn after death. I've attended Pure Land funerals, the entire room chanting together, wave after wave of sound. Old women weeping, young men's voices cracking, everyone trusting, hoping that their loved one heard the name at the right moment. That Amitābha came. That right now, in this very moment, their father or sister or child is being carried on a lotus throne to a land of no suffering. Psychologically, what's happening? Offering hope to ordinary people, creating a path for those who can't meditate 8 hours a day, building trust and receptivity in the mind. The pattern becomes clear. Each Buddha has a domain, a direction, a color, a mantra, a Pure Land, a specialty. People don't pray to Buddha generically, they pray to the specialist for their specific problem. This isn't corruption, this is psychological architecture. Buddhism took the human need for specialized divine help, healers, saviors, cosmic principles, and created a pantheon that serves those needs. Each Buddha embodies one aspect fully. You pray to the one whose quality matches your need. Later traditions would call this skillful means upaya, forms that train different minds in different ways. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. So we've seen devotion redistributed upward, specialized Buddhas for specialized needs. But most Buddhists don't pray directly to Buddhas. They pray to beings who feel closer to human experience. The Bodhisattvas. If Buddhas can feel cosmic and distant, Bodhisattvas feel close, like compassion with a face. Bodhisattvas in Mahāyāna Buddhism are beings who've reached the edge of enlightenment. They could become Buddhas. They could exit the cycle of rebirth completely, but they don't. They stay, they delay their own liberation to help suffering beings. Each bodhisattva embodies one quality, one aspect of awakening, and becomes the go-to figure for that specific need. 3 figures appear most often in people's lives. Avalokiteshvara, called Guanyin in China, Chenrezig in Tibet, the embodiment of compassion itself. The iconography tells you everything, 1,000 arms, each hand holding a different tool, an eye in each palm, seeing all suffering, responding to all cries for help. Gender transformation happened over centuries in India and Tibet, depicted as male. In China and Japan, became female, the goddess of mercy, not Bodhisattva of mercy. Goddess. Coastal fishermen pray before heading to sea, travelers before dangerous journeys, women praying for children, people in crisis calling for rescue. Famous stories fill Chinese literature, people calling Namo Guanyin at the moment of drowning and being miraculously saved. Chains breaking during execution, swords snapping. In practice, people speak to Guanyin like a mother, intimate, trusting, immediate. This creates a sense of compassionate presence, a maternal figure who responds now, not distant, not abstract, present. Then Tara, the swift savior. We made an entire video exploring her story. So today, just the essential point. 21 forms, each addressing specific human fears. Green Tara overcomes obstacles. White Tara grants healing and longevity. Red Tara magnetizes. Black Tara destroys what compassion alone can't handle. Her defining characteristic, speed. She responds swiftly, immediately, not after you've perfected your meditation, not after years of practice. Now. Mothers in labor pray to her, women in danger call her name. Tibetan refugees crossing the Himalayas carry her amulets. Functionally, she provides a female protector in male-dominated religious hierarchies. Immediate response to immediate suffering. Ksitigarbha, Dizang in Chinese. The Hell Worker. According to traditional accounts in the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva Purva Pranidhana Sutra, he made a vow that stops most people cold. Until the hells are empty, I will not become a Buddha. He works in the hell realms, the lowest realms of existence, where beings trapped by hatred and violence suffer for eons. His job, rescue. What do people pray to him for? Deceased relatives, especially those who died badly, suicide, murder, accidents, deaths filled with anger or fear. Families believe these people might be trapped, stuck in hell realms or hungry ghost realms. During Ghost Month, the 7th lunar month in Chinese Buddhism, entire communities make offerings. Pray to Ksitigarbha. Ask him to help their dead. Food, incense, paper money that gets burned. The belief, if you don't feed them, the hungry ghosts might be your relatives, and they'll cause problems for the living. But something crucial happens here that we need to understand. It's not just asking, it's transferring. Merit transfer, called patidana in Theravāda contexts, parinamana in Mahāyāna, is central to how this works. You make offerings, you chant, you meditate, you generate positive karma, merit. Then you dedicate it, transfer it to the dead, to all beings, to those suffering in lower realms. This explains ancestor altars, Ghost Month festivals, offerings at stupas, prayers to Ksitigarbha. You're not asking him to save your grandmother because you're special. You're generating merit through practice, then offering that merit, dedicating it to her liberation. Ksitigarbha, in this framework, helps direct and amplify that dedication. Psychologically, what does this provide? A way to care for the dead, to resolve guilt about those you failed to help while they lived, to maintain relationship across the boundary of death. There are more, thousands more in Mahāyāna texts. Manjushri wields the sword that cuts ignorance. Students pray before exams. Samantabhadra rides a white elephant. Monks pray for ethical strength. Each with mantras, visualization practices, offering protocols. Instead of one God who must be all things to all people, wrathful and compassionate, male and female, immediate and eternal. Buddhism created specialists. Each bodhisattva embodies one quality fully, perfectly. You pray to the one whose quality matches your need. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. You're building relationship with compassion itself, with wisdom itself, with swift action, with the willingness to descend into hell for others. Now we've added helpers, bodhisattvas who respond to immediate suffering, who feel closer, more accessible than distant Buddhas. But there's another layer beneath this, one that handles different kinds of problems: the security team. Compassion isn't the only quality Buddhism needs. Sometimes you need teeth. Meet the Dharmapalas, the Dharma protectors. Mahākala, 6 arms, black skin, skull necklace, trampling demons underfoot. Traditionally regarded as a key protector associated with the Dalai Lama lineage for centuries. Palden Lamo, female protector, rides a mule through a sea of blood. She's the guardian deity of Tibet itself, of Lhasa. Historically, the Tibetan state oracle tradition has been consulted for major decisions about the nation, and dozens more like Hayagrava, the horse-headed protector fierce against black magic. Vajrapani with his thunderbolt destroying delusions. These beings look terrifying. They're supposed to. Why terrifying? Because the obstacles they face are terrifying. Wrathful compassion matches the intensity of suffering. You can't whisper at a demon. You can't gently suggest that black magic leave. The form matches the function. Practitioners make offerings to them, ritual cakes called torma. Sometimes alcohol, sometimes symbolic offerings of the 5 senses. What do they ask for? Protection, obstacle removal, defense against enemies, success in difficult endeavors. But the critical distinction: these beings are not enlightened. They're not Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. They're powerful, yes, oath-bound forces in the ecosystem, spirits who took vows to protect Buddhism and Buddhist practitioners. But they're still working through their own karma, still trapped in the cycle of rebirth. They're more like spiritual security guards than enlightened masters. Ground level medieval Tibet. You're a farmer. Hailstorm destroys your crop. Your family starves. Illness sweeps the village, no medicine. Bandits on the mountain pass. Philosophy won't protect you tonight. You need security, now. Enter the protectors. Another function of devotion, protection. The belief that relationship with enlightened beings or powerful protectors creates a protective field. Not magic, but the psychological effect of feeling watched over, cared for, defended. When you're vulnerable, the mind needs to know something stands between you and chaos. Buddhism did something clever with Hindu gods. It absorbed them, but demoted them. Ganesha, the elephant-headed god. In Hinduism, Ganesha is a major deity, son of Shiva, remover of obstacles, worshipped by millions. In Buddhism, Ganesha is a deva, A God, yes, powerful, yes, but not supreme, not enlightened, still subject to karma and rebirth. Buddhists pray to Ganesha before starting meditation retreats, before building temples, before beginning study. Why? Because he removes obstacles. The Buddhist move, keep the God. Acknowledge his power, remove his ultimate authority. Sarasvati's, goddess of learning, gets similar treatment. Students and artists make offerings. She's a protector of the Dharma, especially texts and teachings, powerful, helpful, but subordinate to the enlightened ones. Brahma and Indra. In Hinduism, Brahma is the creator god, Indra is king of the gods. In Buddhism, they're devas, powerful beings trapped in the god realms, long-lived, comfortable, but still in samsara, still subject to death and rebirth. Traditional accounts in the Ayakana Sutta, Samyutta Nikaya 6.1, right after the Buddha's enlightenment, record something remarkable. Brahma Sahampati, the great Brahma, appears before the Buddha, and he begs, "Please teach, please share what you've discovered. There are beings with little dust in their eyes. They will understand." The Creator God bowing to the teacher, asking permission. The Buddhist inversion is complete. Even the gods recognize the Dharma as higher truth. What does this layer provide? A complete spiritual security infrastructure. Buddhas handle ultimate liberation. Bodhisattvas handle compassion and wisdom. Protectors offer defense. Gods handle worldly benefits. Each layer serves a different need. Bodhisattvas offer help. Protectors offer defense. Different actions. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. Relationship with forces that protect the path, that clear obstacles, that make practice possible. Once you see that, the next layer makes sense. There's a layer that most Western books don't even mention. The layer where Buddhism meets whatever was there first. There was a moment when this all clicked for me. I was staying in northern Thailand, small town, rural. My host family had a traditional wooden house. Early one morning, I watched my host's grandmother prepare offerings for the spirit house in their garden, a small ornate structure on a post, like a miniature temple. Rice, fresh fruit, incense, a bottle of Fanta. I asked about the Fanta later. Apparently, and the spirits like sweet drinks. She was wearing 3 Buddha amulets around her neck. She'd been to the temple twice that week. She chanted the Tiratana, the triple gem, every morning. And here she was, feeding spirits. I tried to be respectful. "Are you Buddhist? Or..." She looked at me like I'd asked if she was human or a woman. "Yes," that's all she said. "Yes." That's when it clicked for me. This wasn't Buddhism corrupted by animism. This wasn't syncretism as compromise. This was Buddhism doing what it's always done, adding a layer without removing the previous ones. The spirits were here first. They've lived in this land for thousands of years. Buddhism didn't replace them. It incorporated them, organized them, gave them roles. Let me show you how widespread this is. Buddhism didn't arrive in empty territory. Everywhere Buddhism spread, animism was already there. Spirit worship, local deities, ghosts, land guardians. Buddhism never tried to replace them. Start with the pretas, hungry ghosts. Beings trapped between the human and hell realms, massive bellies, throats like needles. They can never satisfy their hunger, never satisfy their thirst. Buddhists don't pray to them, they pray for them. Every year during the 7th lunar month in Chinese Buddhism, Ghost Month. Entire communities across East Asia make offerings. Food, incense, paper money that gets burned. Why? Because these hungry ghosts might be your relatives, your ancestors who died with attachments, anger, greed, fear. If you don't feed them, the belief goes, they cause problems for the living. This is merit transfer in action again. You generate positive karma through offerings and chanting. Then dedicate it, transfer it, to the hungry dead. Psychologically, it ritualizes care for the dead, especially those who died badly, resolves guilt, maintains connection across the boundary of death. The Nagas, serpent spirits, ancient, pre-Buddhist, absorbed into Buddhist cosmology. They control water, rain, fertility, earthquakes. Anger them. Drought, crop failure, illness. Honor them. Rain when needed. Prosperity. Protection. The practice? Make offerings at sacred trees, rivers, lakes, before building project, Naga Puja ceremonies. Particularly important in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Tibet, Nepal. Traditional accounts record that during the Buddha's enlightenment, a great storm came. The Naga king Mukhalinda rose from the earth, spread his cobra hood, and sheltered the Buddha from the rain. Even the Buddha needed protection from the Nagas. What does this maintain? Relationship with natural forces, the land, the water, the spirits that were worshipped here long before Buddhism arrived. That Thai grandmother, she wasn't confused. Buddhist monks bless spirit houses, they're part of the system. In Japan, Shinto and Buddhism merged completely, Shinbutsu Shugo. God-Buddha syncretism. Buddhist temples have Shinto shrines on the grounds. Shinto shrines have Buddhist elements. People pray to kami, Shinto spirits, for worldly benefits. Good harvest. Business success. Safe childbirth. They pray to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for spiritual goals, liberation, wisdom, enlightenment after death. Two religions operating as one integrated system. In Tibet, every mountain has a deity. Before Buddhism arrived, Bon shamanism worshipped mountain gods, lake spirits, sky deities. Buddhism absorbed them all. Even today, mountaineers make offerings before climbing, burn juniper, hang prayer flags, ask permission from the mountain deity. The spirits can grant safe passage or send deadly storms. In China, Taoist and folk deities merged with Buddhism. The afterlife became a bureaucracy, courts, judges, clerks, record keepers. People make offerings to influence outcomes in that moral bureaucracy. Buddhist monks perform rituals, navigate this system on behalf of clients' deceased relatives. Buddhism never tried to replace local spirits. It couldn't, and it didn't need to. Instead, it added a new layer on top, ultimate liberation through the Buddha's teachings. But for daily concerns, your crops, your house, your immediate safety, the local spirits still handle that work. Both layers coexist because humans need both, the transcendent and the immediate, the universal and the local, the eternal goal and tomorrow's harvest. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. Relationship with the land, the place, the spirits your ancestors knew. Buddhism expands by absorbing, never replacing. The spirits handle place-based concerns, the protectors handle security. The Bodhisattvas handle compassion. The Buddhas handle ultimate liberation, layered, not confused. One more layer to add, the human bridges. When the Buddha died in 483 BCE, his body was cremated according to his wishes. But that wasn't the end. His remains, bone fragments divided into 8 portions, distributed to different kingdoms. Over centuries, those fragments were divided again and again. Now, fragments exist in stupas across Asia. A tooth in Sri Lanka, hair in Myanmar, bone pieces in Thailand, Tibet, Nepal, China, Japan. The Temple of the Tooth, Kandy, Sri Lanka. Thousands of pilgrims daily during festivals, hundreds of thousands annually. The tooth itself never shown, kept in nested golden caskets, layers of protection. People believe seeing the reliquary brings merit, blessings, better rebirth. The practice, circumambulation, walking clockwise around the stupa, sometimes for hours, offerings, flowers, incense, money. Prayers for blessings, protection from harm, recovery from illness, success for children. Merit gets generated, then dedicated, transferred to loved ones, to all beings. But why do relics work psychologically? Enlightenment sounds impossible. A state beyond suffering, forever? The human mind struggles with abstractions, but a bone fragment, that's real. You can touch the case it's in, you can see other people bowing, feel the weight of centuries of devotion. The abstract becomes concrete, the impossible becomes maybe possible. But Buddhism didn't stop with the Buddha's relics. It created an entire system around dead masters. Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, the second Buddha of Tibetan Buddhism. 8th century Indian master, brought Buddhism to Tibet, subdued demons, hid treasure teachings for future generations. According to traditional account, he didn't die. He dissolved into rainbow light. No corpse, no remains. Every 10th day of the lunar month, Guru Rinpoche Day, Tibetan Buddhists make special offerings, perform practices, recite prayers. He's believed to still be accessible, responding to prayers from his Pure Land. His image appears in every Tibetan Buddhist home, every temple, every monastery. He functions as a living deity, not merely a historical figure. Thai forest tradition masters. Ajahn Mun, 1870 to 1949. Ajahn Chah, 1918 to 1992. Revered teachers of the Theravāda forest tradition. I've been in taxis in Bangkok where the driver touches a photo of Ajahn Chah on the dashboard, then his amulet, whispers a quick protective chant before pulling into traffic. Their photos appear in homes, businesses everywhere, fresh flower offerings placed before them, incense, candles. People say, if it's truly Dhamma, Ajahn Mun will help. The belief? They're not dead. They're arhats, perfected beings dwelling in Nibbana, still spiritually reachable. The Dalai Lamas. Each incarnation carries the accumulated blessings of all previous incarnations. The current 14th Dalai Lama, people touch his robes for blessings, keep his photo as a devotional object, pray to him for guidance and intervention. He's seen as Avalokiteshvara, incarnate, compassion itself, in human form. The complexity? He's alive, but already receiving devotion like a sacred presence. The Sokushin Butsu, self-mummified monks. A small number of monks in medieval Japan, fewer than 24 confirmed cases, attempted an extreme practice. Years of special diet, pine needles, bark, resins, slowly removing all moisture from the body, intense meditation, eventually sealed alive in a meditation chamber, underground, with an air tube, a bell. When the bell stopped, 3 years later they were exhumed. If the body was preserved, declared a living Buddha. Leathery skin stretched over bone, eyes closed, still sitting, if it decomposed, buried with honor, the attempt itself considered noble. A handful of these mummified monks still exist, on display in temples, believed to be in deep meditation, not dead. Offerings made, prayers directed to them, physical proof that spiritual attainment is real, possible, accessible. From the outside, this often functions in a similar way to Catholic veneration of saints. Relics in churches, feast days, miracles attributed, intercession requested. Buddhism insists this is respect, honoring teachers. But when you observe what people actually do, they ask these dead masters for help, guidance, blessings, protection. The line blurs. What does this create psychologically? Models who succeeded, proof it's possible. Living lineage connection, not abstract teachings, but relationship with real humans who achieved what you're attempting. The dead masters become bridges between ordinary practitioners and the seemingly impossible goal of enlightenment. They prove it can be done, and they help you get there. So now we have the complete map. Buddhas above, Bodhisattvas as helpers, protectors for security, spirits for place, human saints as bridges. 5 layers all operating simultaneously. But here's the question. Do all Buddhist traditions embrace all 5 layers? Not exactly. Buddhism split into 3 main branches centuries ago. I've covered what these schools are elsewhere. Today's question is different. How does each school handle this gap between philosophy and practice? Theravāda, the elders' school, dominant in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia. The official doctrine? Buddhism is primarily about self-liberation. No creator is required. Your own effort matters most. Meditation and ethical conduct are the path. But Theravāda has devotion. It just frames it differently. Buddhanussati's recollection of the Buddha, not worship, remembering his qualities to inspire your own development. Parita chanting, protective recitations, not magic spells, but training the mind through sacred sound. Merit-making and offerings to devas acknowledged in Pali texts themselves. The ground-level practice? In Myanmar, Nat worship fully integrated. Nats, local spirits, have shrines at Buddhist monasteries. Monks perform blessings against evil spirits, black magic, possession. In Thailand, spirit houses everywhere, protective amulets, magical tattoos called sak yant. Monks bless these objects, a huge industry. Some amulets sell for thousands of dollars. Protection, wealth, love, success. In Sri Lanka, elaborate rituals for devas, offerings for rain, health, prosperity, separate ceremonies. Worldly goals go to devas, spiritual goals go to Dharma practice. The gap between what's taught in monastery meditation halls and what happens in village temples is real. Western converts usually get version 1, pure doctrine. Asian practitioners live version 2. Integrated practice. Neither side sees contradiction, different tools for different purposes. Mahāyāna, the great vehicle, dominant in China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. The philosophical position: all beings and deities are empty of inherent existence, lacking independent reality. Devotional practices are skillful means, upaya, tools for different spiritual capacities. Some people respond to philosophy, others to devotion, others to ritual. The ultimate goal remains the same: insight into emptiness. The practical embrace. Pure Land Buddhism makes devotion the primary path. Some dedicated practitioners traditionally aim for numbers like 10,000 chants of Amitābha's name daily. For decades, The Pure Land might philosophically be a state of mind, but if you attend a Pure Land funeral, you'll see a community chanting together, creating waves of sound, people weeping, trusting, believing their loved one is being escorted to an actual realm. Faith matters, not meditation skill. Zen Buddhism maintains the paradox beautifully. Zen has a famous teaching: if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Don't cling to forms, but also extensive bowing, chanting, ritual tea ceremonies, devotion to lineage masters. The approach: use devotion to transcend devotion. Chinese Buddhism centers on Bodhisattva devotion. Guanyin, more popular than any Buddha. Central figure in most temples. Complex Pure Land cosmologies with multiple realms. Merit-making through offerings, sutra copying, temple building. Mahāyāna doesn't pretend there's no gap. It says openly, use whatever works for your current level of development. The sophisticated practitioners admit these forms are ultimately empty, but functionally useful for training the heart and mind. Vajrayāna, the diamond vehicle, Tibetan Buddhism. This is where it gets wild. Vajrayāna looks the most religious, most theistic. Hundreds of deities with elaborate iconography, extensive ritual offerings, chanting, visualizations, protector practices, divination, oracles, ceremonial dance. To outsiders, it looks like polytheistic religion on maximum intensity. But Vajrayāna does something radical. You don't pray to the deity, you visualize yourself as the deity. The practice, deity yoga, works in stages. Stage 1, generation. You visualize the deity in front of you, complete detail, every ornament, hand gesture, facial expression, color, weapon, flower. This takes months or years of practice to perfect. The deity appears as vivid as a real person. Stage 2, invitation. You invite the deity's wisdom being to merge with your visualization. The form you created becomes a vehicle for awakened qualities. Stage 3, merging. The visualization dissolves into you. You are now Tara, or Avalokiteshvara, or Medicine Buddha. You see through their eyes, embody their qualities, act from their wisdom and compassion. A Vajrayāna practitioner visualizing white Tara for healing doesn't say, "Please, Tara, heal my illness." They say, "I am white Tara," every cell radiating healing light, compassion flowing through 7 eyes, wisdom cutting through the illusion of the disease. They manifest that reality now. Stage 4, dissolution. The deity dissolves into emptiness. No deity, no you, no separation. You rest in awareness that none of it had inherent existence. Critical point. You don't inflate the self. You replace the self-image with an enlightened template, then dissolve it. The prayer transforms from petition to recognition, from asking to becoming. Done wrong, ego games, spiritual inflation, delusion. Done right, profound transformation. This practice requires years, teacher supervision, rigorous training. Vajrayāna solved the problem by going all the way through it. Yes, we'll have deities, hundreds of them. Yes, we'll have elaborate devotion, complex rituals, wrathful protectors. But we'll use all that devotion as rocket fuel for realizing there never was anyone separate to pray to. The deity and you were always one awareness, temporarily appearing as two, for the purpose of training. Some modern Buddhists, especially Western converts, reject the devotional layers entirely. Just give me the meditation. Just give me the philosophy. But they're often surprised when they visit temples and discover most Buddhists worldwide have never separated these things. 3 schools, 3 approaches to the same tension. Theravāda has devotion but frames it as recollection and protection. Mahāyāna embraces it openly, skillful means for different capacities. Vajrayāna goes through it completely, uses duality to realize non-duality. But all three use the same underlying structure, the three-layer system. Let me show you how it works. Buddhism didn't remove devotion, it redistributed it. The complete architecture. Layer 3, folk Buddhism, the foundation, local spirits, ghosts, protective amulets, fortune-telling, astrology, magical rituals, syncretism with whatever religion was there first, animism, Shinto, Taoism, Bon. This is the daily lived reality on the ground. What does this provide? Handles immediate practical concerns. Health, money, family safety, crops, weather, protection from enemies. The stuff you need handled tomorrow. Gives the mind a sense of local belonging, connection to place. Layer 2. Devotional Buddhism. The infrastructure. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as objects of veneration. Chanting, prostrations, offerings, pilgrimage, merit-making, pure land practice, deity yoga, mantra recitation. This is what most Asian Buddhists primarily practice. What does this provide? Emotional connection, community structure, moral framework, hope. Training the heart before training the mind gives the mind moral structure and hope for better futures. Layer 1, Philosophical Buddhism. The pinnacle, the ultimate goal. No creator God, no eternal soul, self-liberation through wisdom, meditation on emptiness, insight into no self, understanding dependent origination. This is what most Western books emphasize. What does this provide? The ultimate goal and intellectual framework. Liberation from suffering itself gives the mind ultimate direction. The genius of this system, all three layers operate simultaneously. You don't choose one and reject the others. Same person one day in Japan. Morning. A salaryman meditates on impermanence before work, observing breath, noting thoughts. Layer 1. Afternoon. He stops at a temple during lunch, lights incense before canon. His mother is in the hospital. He chants, makes an offering, dedicates the merit. Layer 2. Evening. At home, he places fresh water and rice before the kamidana, the Shinto shelf, for the household kami, the spirits who protect his family. Layer 3. He's not confused, he's not hypocritical, he's not mixing things up. He's using different tools for different needs at different levels of reality. Why does this work? Because humans are layered beings. We have immediate survival needs, food, safety, health, money. We have emotional needs, connection, meaning, community, hope. We have ultimate existential questions. What am I? What happens after death? What is real? Buddhism provides tools for all three levels. The genius, it never forces you to choose. You can be philosophically sophisticated and emotionally devoted and practically engaged with local spirits, all at once. Layer 3 handles daily survival, crops, weather, health, enemies, bad luck. Layer 2 provides spiritual infrastructure, community, morality, emotional satisfaction, hope for better rebirth. Layer 1 points to ultimate liberation, the final freedom from suffering itself. Remove any layer, Buddhism becomes incomplete. Remove the philosophy, folk religion without direction. Remove the devotion, dry intellectualism without heart. Remove the folk layer, disconnection from lived human experience. In Buddhism, prayer often means relationship, not a request to a creator. Relationship at every level, with the ultimate truth, with compassionate helpers, with the land beneath your feet. This might seem like history, medieval Tibet, ancient practices. But this three-layer system explains something you see everywhere today. Why your Buddhist friend meditates on emptiness, but also keeps a Guanyin statue. Why meditation apps talk about no self, but Buddhist communities still gather for chanting. Walk into a Zen center in San Francisco. You'll meditate on emptiness for an hour, then bow to a Buddha statue. Some people are comfortable with this, others ask, "Wait, I thought we didn't believe in that?" The tension between philosophy and practice isn't ancient history. It's happening right now, in every Western convert sangha, in every Asian immigrant temple, in every online argument about real Buddhism. Understanding these layers, you stop asking which is authentic. You start asking which layer serves which need. Philosophy for ultimate truth, devotion for emotional connection, folk practice for immediate concerns. Different tools, not contradictions. And you see that Buddhism has always been both rational and devotional, both psychological and relational, both philosophy and prayer. That's not a bug, that's how it works. So let's answer the question directly. If Buddhism has no God, who are Buddhists praying to? We've mapped them all: Buddhas above, Bodhisattvas in the middle, protectors at the gates, spirits in the land, masters as bridges. The philosophical defense goes like this. None of these beings are God in the Abrahamic sense. No creator who made the universe, no judge deciding your fate, no ultimate authority over the laws of karma. They're all subject to emptiness, no inherent independent existence. They're skillful means, not ultimate reality. No creator is required. Liberation still depends on your training. The goal remains what it always was: self-liberation through wisdom. The practical reality. For most Buddhists, in actual lived experience, these beings often function in similar ways to gods, saints, angels in other traditions. They're prayed to with devotion, offerings made with expectation, miracles attributed to their intervention, help requested and believed to be received. From the outside, the line often blurs. I've met monks who interpret these beings psychologically, as representations of qualities we're developing. And I've met grandmothers who speak to them like family, with intimacy, trust, love. Buddhism can hold both. Because Buddhism didn't replace God with nothing. It redistributed the divine into a network of specialized helpers, each embodying a quality you need to develop within yourself. Much of the confusion comes from using the word God without defining what we mean. Depending on what you mean by God, Buddhism both has and doesn't have gods. It's simultaneously atheistic and polytheistic. Prayer both works and doesn't work. The beings are both real and empty. The contradiction is the point. This is the middle way, where reality is too complex for simple yes or no answers. The real question isn't who receives prayer, it's what prayer cultivates in the one praying. You bow to Avalokiteshvara, not to outsource compassion, but to practice opening your heart. You visualize Manjushri not to borrow wisdom from outside, but to recognize the clarity you already possess. You chant to Amitābha, not to escape responsibility, but to train your mind in trust and receptivity. The beings might be real, they might be metaphors, they might be psychological archetypes, they might be actual presences dwelling in subtle realms beyond our ordinary perception. I've seen all these interpretations work. Which is correct? Maybe that's the wrong question. What matters is whether the practice leads you toward less suffering, more wisdom, greater compassion. From the Genjokon, a Dogen wrote, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things." In the deepest meditation, experienced practitioners say there's no one praying and nothing prayed to. The observer and the observed collapse into a single awareness. The devotion was always pointing back to your own awakened nature. If you're more confused about Buddhism after this video than you were before, good. You're finally seeing it as it actually is. Not a neat philosophical system, not a simple set of meditation techniques, but a living, breathing, beautifully complex human response to suffering. Using every tool available: philosophy, devotion, ritual, magic, meditation, community, whatever helps beings wake up. In the end, what Buddhism calls prayer is less about asking and more about learning how to relate to wisdom, to compassion, and to your own awakening. Which being in this pantheon surprised you most? Or, if you needed help tomorrow, which one would you turn to? I'm genuinely curious. Tell me in the comments. If you want to understand how Buddhism can say there's no God while all this devotion exists, watch my video, Why Buddhists Don't Believe in God. It's the perfect companion to this one. Or if Tara specifically intrigued you, Matt made an entire deep dive on her story and practices. Subscribe if you want more honest explorations of Buddhism's beautiful contradictions. The stuff that doesn't make it into the beginner books. And seriously, if this made Buddhism more confusing instead of less, perfect. That means you're finally getting it. Real Buddhism is complex, layered, and it doesn't apologize for that.